Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dears. Welcome back to another video. Today we will be discussing what are the different characteristics of philosophy. So let's start. Let me ask you a question. How long do lions generally live? You can find out. You would go to a biology textbook or search online, and within minutes you would have a fairly precise answer. The question is answerable through observation, through evidence, and through data. Now let me ask you a different question. What is time? Go ahead. Open any textbook, search online. You will find many answers, but none of them will feel final. None of them will close the question completely, because this is not a question the observation alone can answer. The difference between questions that observations can answer and questions that it cannot is one of the most important characteristics of philosophy. And today we are going to study exactly what makes philosophy by examining its four defining characteristics. So the first one is philosophy asks questions. The first and most fundamental characteristic of philosophy is this: it is driven entirely by questions. Nagel 1987 puts it beautifully. Philosophy is done simply by asking questions, arguing, trying out ideas, thinking of possible objections, and wondering how our concepts really work. No single method, no standard experiment. The question itself is the instrument. A historian asks, what happened in the past? A philosopher asks, what is time itself? A mathematician investigates relationship between numbers. A philosopher asks, what exactly is a number? A psychologist studies how children learn language. A philosopher asks, what makes word mean anything at all? Do you see this pattern? Every discipline asks questions about specific things. Philosophy asks questions about the concepts those disciplines take for granted. Science assumes that observation gives us knowledge. Philosophy asks what is knowing and how is it possible. Law assumes that some actions are just. Philosopher asks what is justice. And this is why Jaspers 1951 said something that I want you to remember. Philosophy's questions are more essential than the answers, and every answer becomes a question. Philosophy does not end, it deepens. Every solution opens a new door to explore. Unlike the science who seeks to ask closed questions, philosophy asks open questions. The second characteristic is philosophy is extra-observational. Philosophy deals with questions that cannot be answered by observations alone. Observational questions are answerable through evidence and the senses. Was Julius Caesar assassinated? Examine historical records. Is there life beyond our solar system? Enough evidence will answer these questions. These are empirical questions, and science and history can answer them. Philosophical questions. Philosophical questions require something beyond observations. Is killing ever justified? No amount of data can answer this question. What is consciousness? You cannot put consciousness under a microscope. What is reality? Observation cannot answer this question. So there is a distinction clearly. With philosophical questions, observation is not irrelevant. but it can never provide enough evidence to settle the question with certainty. This does not mean philosophy ignores evidence. It means philosophy goes beyond evidence into the field of reasoning, argumentation, and conceptual analysis. The third characteristic of philosophy is the search for wisdom. Philosophy is not the possession of wisdom. It is the active, humble, restless pursuit of wisdom. Pursuit of wisdom. Pursuit of wisdom. And there is a very important distinction between the two. Wisdom is the accumulation of experience, knowledge, and understanding through a life fully lived. Philosophy is the love for that wisdom, the recognition that you do not yet have it, and the commitment to pursue it. You remember Socrates, perhaps the most famous philosopher in history, expressed this perfectly. He says, I only know that I do not know anything. The person who believes they already know everything has stopped thinking. The philosophers never stops thinking. The wisest people are often those who are aware how much they do not know. The fourth characteristic is philosophy is intellectual and intermediate speculation. It comes from one of the greatest philosophers of modern era, Bertrand Russell. Russell described philosophy as occupying a unique and extraordinary position, sitting between science and theology. He called it intellectual and intermediate speculation. Let me explain this. Intellectual philosophy uses the intellect as its primary instrument. No divine revelation, not laboratory experiment, no appeal to authority, pure logical reasoning. Now, what is intermediate? Philosophy sits between two great human enterprises, the science and theology. Philosophy is in the middle. Science, the definite knowledge, philosophy is uncertain but reasoned, and theology is dogmatic certainty. One needs empirical evidence, the other needs logical argument, and the last needs faith in revelation. The science lives with closed questions, philosophy lives with open questions, and the theology claims final answers. So Russell says, all questions that science can answer belong to science. All questions that religion answers through faith and beliefs belong to theology, but all questions that are too deep for science and too uncertain for theology belong to philosophy. Now, what is philosophy as a living frontier? When a philosophical question gets a firm, verified answer, it moves into science. For example, what causes disease was once a philosophical question and now it is medicine. So Russell describes the philosopher's tasks as occupying no man's land, the vast intellectual territory between what we know for certain and what we believe are unfaith. And this is not a weakness, this is the philosophy's greatest strength. It keeps human thinking honest. So let's recap what we did today. Today we studied four characteristics of the philosophical thinking or philosophy. The first was philosophy lives with questions, not just any question, the deepest questions, the ones that examines the very concepts other disciplines take for granted. The second feature or characteristic, philosophy deals with extra-observational questions, questions that evidence can inform but never settle. The third, Philosophy is the pursuit of wisdom, not its possession. The fourth philosophy is intellectual and intermediate speculation. It occupies the space between science and theology, and that's all. One final thought. These four characteristics are not just description of an academic discipline. They are descriptions of a way of thinking, a habit of mind that any serious thinker in any field can cultivate. As linguists, as researchers, as educators, learn to think philosophically means learn to question your own assumptions, live with uncertainties, pursue understanding rather than comfort, and reason carefully even when the answers are not clear. If you love this video, please share it with your friends. Until next time, question everything but carefully. Thank you so much.